Oh my god, what is happening to Intel stock? Look, this stock is down 17% in just one day. What is happening to Intel stock? And that is what we're going to be discussing in our episode for today. So earnings shock, is this a turnaround or is it a trap for the investors of Intel? So beginning, I'm going to show the highlighter here so that you can just follow along with me. So Intel stock is down 17% despite really being up very well in the last month. So as we can see, the stock is up almost 25%. And just if we just exclude this move, it was up 50% in just 1 month. And that is really phenomenal to see for any stock, in just 1 month. So that is really kind of, one would say that this was coming regardless of the results that we saw in Q4 2025. So really what happened is that the stock plunged after Q4 2025 earnings, mainly due to supply constraints. That is the biggest reason why the stock is really down, because it was lower. So really the second thing is weaker than expected outlook for Q1 2026, and this was one of the most important things why some of the investors and analysts are kind of downgrading or expecting the stock or the company to perform less well in Q1 2026, and that's why the stock went down by almost 17%. Another thing was this no major customer announcement in Q4 2025. A lot of people were kind of expecting some very prominent customers to be acquired, or kind of, there is a cooperation between them and Intel. However, this did not really happen, and that is a third reason why the stock is down. Now, really, it comes to a key question: is this a continuation of a turnaround story or the beginning of the end? And this is what we're going to be discussing with Intel. And this is really something that I've been talking about over the last, couple of weeks. If you look at the stock over the last 6 weeks, it's 6 months, sorry, it's been up more than or almost 100%, and this is really nice to see for a company to do that well. We have seen that Intel has been, kind of suffering over the past couple of years overall. If we exclude from 2024, when this was really the bottom between 2024 and the early 2025. However, if we see, kind of the stock was almost down 60%, and it was just really being hammered. However, from that time onwards, we can see that the stock has performed very well by up more than 130%. So what is really happening? That is what we're going to be talking about. So let's begin. Zooming on here. So CEO David Zinsner has explained that the soft Q1 guidance is driven by supply constraints, and that was the biggest reason the stock sold off, and expected to bottom out in Q1 and rebound in Q2. And that is one of the times that we're going to see the stock probably going up if the macroeconomic is really going well. So let's just zoom in on Intel's revenue, and let's see on a quarterly basis. So this is Q3 2024 all the way into Q4 2025, and as you can see, the revenue hasn't really changed much. So 13.3 billion, 14.3, 12.7, 12.9. You can see it's kind of just fluctuating at the same levels. If we look at another different chart from fiscal.ai, that's one of the websites that I really like to use. So as you can see in the blue, so this is total cash and cash equivalents. And as you can see, the cash in 2023 was just a kind of, almost half of the long-term debt, which is in orange. However, if we go all the way into Q4 2025, we can see that the cash to debt ratio has almost become 1-to-1 ratio. Unlike in the previous, it was 1-to-2 ratio for the debt. So, kind of the balance sheet is improving for Intel stock. However, most of that is really coming from the US as a country, from the US investments in Intel. And that is one of the things that we talked about in our previous video. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, because it really would help you in finding those interesting topics. So really, what happened is that the balance sheet is really improving, although most of that is coming from the US as a country. However, that's one of the nice things to see for the Intel and for shareholders of Intel stock. So really, if you look at the cash from operating activities, and this is in blue, we can see it was kind of, just going up and down over the last 2 years. However, we see over the last 3 quarters, we can see that it's been consistently in a very nice way. Cash from operating activities in blue, it's going up in the right direction. And if you look at the free cash flow, which is this kind of this other line, you can see that this was on the negative side, but then over time, we can see that it's becoming more positive. So the free cash flow is becoming more positive for the company, and which is really phenomenal to see. So revenue Q over Q has declined by approximately 0.7%. So it's kind of, at the same place. And year over year, it has declined by 5%, although the results came in better than expectations. Now, what is positive about the stock and the profits is that it continues improving its balance sheet, as we said, narrowing the gap between cash and cash equivalents and the long-term debt, almost 1-to-1 ratio, and the free cash flow has become positive for the second consecutive quarter, showing improving financial discipline and stability. And really, this really brings us to what this means for the industry. Overall, this was a solid quarter that shows an early step in Intel's turnaround story, highly likely in my view. However, in my personal view, I would not be investing in Intel at the current levels. It's not because of the price itself. I still believe that if this is going to be a nice company, it's going to have to be a turnaround story. My personal opinion, I don't believe and invest in turnaround stories until I highly believe in that company. Overall, Intel, I think they have some nice potential. However, my personal view is that this is going to be a very tough turnaround, although the new CEO has really been doing well over the last couple of quarters. So competition across semiconductor space will intensify over the next few years, which is healthy for the industry, but could temporarily benefit competitors like AMD. And that's why, if you look at AMD stock, it was up by around 2%. It actually reached almost more than that. However, if we look at the past 5 days, it's up by almost 11%, and this is really nice for the stock, and almost 20% over the last month, although it had kind of similar levels or even higher just in October 2025, but this is really nice to see for AMD investors. I believe that AMD is really on to something really nice, but that's not the topic of our video. If we also look at Broadcom, it's on the other side. It went down by almost 1.7%, and over the last couple of days, down 8%. Over the last month, down 8 to 9%. Although, if you look at the past 6 months, it is up by 10%. So what is happening to Broadcom? That's one of the things that we can talk about. If you guys really like these type of videos, let me know in the comments down below. So competition, as we said, it could drive AMD and Broadcom in the short term in different ways. So semiconductor stocks broadly sold off on the news, but AMD did not. This was just initially, but then it rebounded. Broadcom, and showing a sector-wide sentiment impact. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Would Intel really be a turnaround story or not? And would you be investing in this company particularly? And I'll see you in our next video.